Guarda che bello.
Making us lunch. You want some?
Yes.
Grazie, jó étvágyat!
Hello everyone, I can't believe it, we are here. I'm fully dressed, I have makeup on. I'm sorry, the background, I know it's lame. Okay, trust the process, we are still working on the studio. We're gonna get there and it's gonna be popping. But at the moment, this is what we have. I want to talk about this topic, which is about the countryside versus the city. And the title, is it what it is? That's not the point. You have your own preference, what you want from your life, how you want to live, what is your perfect idea of a home, and that's fine. And I have mine, and I'm gonna talk about, that. I grew up in Budapest, which is the capital of Hungary, so it's a huge city. I'm not gonna talk about that much specifically about Budapest because then I can't talk about it without being political, and I don't want to do that much. But back in that day, back in the 90s, in the early 2000s, the city was already not that safe. Now, especially not, absolutely not. But back in that time, it was already not safe. And I grew up in the cities a little bit, not that much, because our parents were really, were guiding us and taking care of us. They didn't let us alone that much when we were like kids. I got harassed by surprise men a lot. They were so aggressive. There was one dude who was showing his genitalia when I was 12 on the metro. So I have so many stories and they are all really disturbing and something that shouldn't happen. Like, this is not the environment when I want to live in, and especially not a place where I want my kids to grow up. Even if the original idea was not to, move specifically to the countryside, I, came here to Italy at first with Erasmus, and here in Macerata, which is a small town in the middle of Italy, and I met with Mauro, who is my husband now and the father of my child. And Mauro was living in the countryside, where he still is, but I moved to there and moved here with him. At first, it was really, really hard in a lot of point of view because it was so different. I'm talking about cultural shock in another video when you're moving. And this is what I experienced, that it was so different compared to the environment where I lived until that time, which was the city, that it was really challenging to adjust to that and to accept that is so different. Because when you're moving, you're searching for, the things that you were you doing before and the way you're doing it before, and then you have to adapt to that new thing. And if that cultural difference is so big, then it's really hard to do that. So this is what it happened, that it was really hard because when you're going to the countryside, everything is really silent and quiet. As you can see now, like, all the windows are open. You don't hear any noise. There's no noise, well, except the nature itself. So you have to adapt to that because, the good thing about a city is that you can do whatever you want, whenever you want. It's always, awake, and you can just go easily to grab lunch and, do things. But when you are in the countryside, you have to be really organized. That's one of the things. But after 2 years, I started to adapt and appreciate the nature. I started to grow my own food and use it and use nature and the surrounding in a way that was helpful and useful for me, for us, which was an amazing experience. And I started to adapt to the new place, to the people, to the culture. And it's important to mention that the reason I wanted to go away from Budapest at that time, because I didn't felt good there. Like I felt the city and the people on the streets, like they were in a really bad place, which is still like that, or is eventually is worse. But I feel that it's not just about Budapest, it's about like cities in general. Like it's not really unhuman, and you don't see each other. Like you are moving in a space in the streets, you feel that the people are just a big gray blob, and you don't, look at in each other's eyes, and you're not talking, or if you do, then you're not talking in a nice way, because the cashier and the butcher, they are tired, so they're not talking to you. They just give you the stuff and then you go, because you're just another customer, and they don't have to be nice with you because another one is coming. And the countryside is really, really different. And this is my first point eventually. The pros and cons of living in a city and the countryside is that when I go to buy my bread or my food, my vegetables, I'm going to a place where people knows me by name. We know each other. We know each other's stories, families, and we are chit-chatting and we are having fun. You have a whole experience when you're doing your chores. And that's something that these little things adds up in your daily life, because you feel much more, better, because you have like actual human experiences. And of course there are days when you don't want that and you prefer to live in this city life and like no one talks to me, and like of course there are like this, but it helps you to feel better if you're doing the other way. So about the city, the good thing about living in a big city is that usually the public transportation is really good. It's the same in Budapest. I started to experience, like we were always angry about the public transportation in Budapest, but now that I live in Italy, especially in Italy, but like in the countryside, I realize like, oh no, it's really good there. It looks like chaos sometimes. They can, be late or whatever, but it's really good. The connections are really good. So in general, that is a really, really good thing about cities. And you have to have a bicycle or a car when you are living in the countryside if you want to do chores, if you want to go to places, because not everything is in walking distance. So in cities you can walk everywhere also to grab your stuff. There's always places to go in a city and doing stuff, if you're bored, like you can just walk 5-10 minutes and then you have like where I lived was like I could go to a cinema, I could just shop or have a coffee with my friends, or you can do that also here, but everything, like you go to an escape room, like everything is really, really close, and you can do stuff whenever you want. If you're like, tonight I want to listen to some jazz in a bar, you can do that. In the countryside, the events are really limited. They are, a lot of time, they are not even good. So that is something like culturally I'm missing a lot, because I'm living in the countryside or living in Italy, or that is something that I miss a lot in Budapest, because culturally there was always a lot to do and there was always something exciting. In a city, there's much more job opportunities that I can, totally understand. If, that is why people are moving to cities. But I really think that in the long run, the cities are gonna change. People will move out. Like everyone will move out, or most of the people will move out at one point. Because it's so unhuman to live in a city and it's not healthy for you. If you're living in a countryside, You are usually far from your friends and family. Of course, there are different life situations, but for me, that I also live in another country, so again, the situation is different. But that is the hardest for me, that I moved so far away from my friends and family, and I miss them so much. The last thing I wrote down is that the countryside is filled with mud, which is a stupid thing to say, because it's not true. I mean, it depends how countryside you are living in, but yeah, it's much less situations where you can, dress up nicely. About the countryside, why I like to live here. First of all, the air, of course, it's really much cleaner, and you are healthier because of the lack of noise and air pollution. The nature itself is clean, so while in the cities it is still not somewhere. If there's grass, I'm not willingly laying on the floor in that grass anymore. Because I see how they look like and how not clean they are usually. You eat way healthier and way better in the countryside, because in the city people doesn't have time, the chefs doesn't have time to cook properly and put the time. When you're going out to eat in the city, you're not eating as well as in the countryside because of how much people they have to serve. They are basically working in a factory and they are just doing the recipes, boom, 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 like this. And in the countryside, you have more time and you're more relaxed, because cooking is an art performance. So it's not something that you like, you have to do really fastly. You should, calmly and nicely do your thing. So the food is much more healthier, much more tastier, and the goods doesn't have to travel as much, because you're already in the countryside. You can grow your own vegetables. I mean, there's nothing else to say. It's just amazing thing to grow your own food. It's such a wonderful feeling to have. I feel so much more free in so many ways. Like in a city, you are much more monitored because of the cameras that you also have, of course, in the countryside, but not everywhere, like, around, the bank or whatever. But in the countryside, you are more free to do whatever you want, not like back in the 80s or the 90s, but, you're still much more free. It's the last place where you're, more free than anywhere. We are always monitored. We're always monitored, and that's so not. It's so unhealthy for us. I think that's the most important. This is the most important part for me, that you are free. I think it's gonna be more and more important while we are changing and going to different directions that I'm not going to talk about now, but there's so many other things to say, but I'm already talking for 20 minutes, so which is insanely long. If you watched the whole thing, thank you. I hope that it was enjoyable. And yeah, for sure I left out things. I've been wanting to make this video for years, really years, because there's so many things to mention. Like, so many things happened with me in 8.5 years. If you have your pros and cons, please write it into the comment section, and like this video, subscribe please. That helps me a lot. And share this video with your friends who are thinking about where to move. I have an actual video which is talking about that, like how to choose a place to stay and live. But this is like specifically about, the city countryside differences. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. And the next video is probably going to about the studio itself. I try to document it. Well, I'm not gonna be done with it, but yeah, I'm still working. We're gonna work a lot still. We have to paint it, so thank you for watching, and see you in the next video. Ciao!